Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to the Voice of the Cape Matric Revision Programme for 2022. I'm Conita Kamar, and my guest this afternoon on our Facebook and YouTube channel for our live revision session is Fatima Adamson, and she is an educator at Futures Academy Online High School. And the topic for today, in terms of the subject for revision, is Religious Studies, Paper 1. Assalamu alaikum, Fatima.
Wa alaikum salam. Konita, how are you?
I'm very well, Alhamdulillah. I'm also looking forward to today's session, and I invite the viewers to also follow through. If you are not in matric and you matriculated years ago, but you know anyone who's doing religious studies and can benefit, please do like and share this post with anyone who can benefit. If you're an educator, they can always pass on the information. This is the recorded session, so they can always refer back to listen. So I'll be handing over to you to focus on the paper 1, preparation of religious studies. Bismillah.
Shukran so much, Konita and VOC, and assalamu alaikum to all the listeners and also all my learners, colleagues, teachers. Welcome. And I'm super excited to do this in collaboration with VOC and Futures Academy. Just a little bit of a background with regards to religion studies and my experience with it. I've been teaching religion studies for the past almost 3 years and fell in love with it in undergraduate. And yeah, I am busy teaching it to learners at Futures Academy and also previous learners at schools that I've taught at. So welcome. We are going to be doing a revision or preparation on religion studies paper 1 today. And as you can see on my screen, you'll see that the tentative dates or the date for paper 1 is on the 11th of November 2022. So we have a bit over a month to prepare. So I am my intention with this program is to give you some guidance with regards to how do you prepare adequately for your religious studies paper 1. Okay, so here we go. So as we should know, it is important for us to always refer back to our exam guidelines. So looking at what the exam guidelines stipulates is highly important. Okay. So if we look at paper 1, we have what we call a compulsory question, which is 50 marks. We have a paper out of 150 for paper 1 and paper 2, which makes up a 300 mark um, total for paper 1 and paper 2. So paper 1 is the paper where we will have your compulsory question, which consists of your multiple choice questions, your match the columns, one word answers, etc. Right? And I like to tell my learners that this paper is actually the paper where you can score better marks in comparison to paper 2, but we will look at paper 2 hopefully next week, inshallah, and dissect that. Okay. So just with regards to section A, so let's say you are haven't opened up your religion studies textbook for the year and you are writing it on the 11th of November. Where do you start? Okay, so where do you start? So what I like to say to my learners is that for paper 1 and especially for section A, you need to have at least a broad understanding of the various religions that we touch on in religion studies, and that includes Judaism, Christianity, Islam, African traditional religion, Theism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and the Baha'i faith. Right? So there needs to be an adequate amount of basic knowledge on this particular or on these particular religions so that you're able to adequately adequately answer the section A to the best of your abilities. Okay, so you're sitting there, you don't know where to start. Section A's. Now is the time for us to go through question papers. right? And I'm going to show you today as well, how do we extract information from the question papers so that we are able to learn from the marking guidelines that is so readily available as well. So section A is 50 marks, and as you can see, you will have a variety of questions, your 10 mark multiple choice questions, one word answers, true and false questions as well, matching the items, and also one word answers. Okay, so again, I'm going to move, right? When we look at section A, right, we need to be able to create study notes on the major religions, and there it is, as you can see on my screen, right? Those are the 8 religions that we focus on in religion studies. So what I like to say to my learners is, whilst you're going through section A's of, let's say you're going to do the last 5 years papers, right? So you're going to do the last 5 years papers. You're going to print it out with the marking guidelines, and obviously, please do that on shrink it to 2 on a page so we don't waste paper. And you're going to do that, right? So take the last 5 years papers, November especially, because you're preparing for a November paper, and you're now going to work through the section A's in conjunction to creating your own study notes. So you will have your little mind map on Judaism. And as you're working through section A's, you're now going to pick up any information from the multiple choice questions or the match the column that relates to Judaism and put it into that. Okay. And that is what you need to do for the rest also of the religions. And what I like to emphasize here as well to my learners and to you now, it is also to build your knowledge base through the various resources that is available. So as you can see, I have given you some websites and links to matric past papers where you can find all the way back to 2008, right? So there is a variety of resources available, and this will be available to learners if they want to obviously go to these links. Okay, so in conjunction with your past papers, you need to have your textbook there. So we use the top class religious studies textbook, and it is available online as well. So it is important for you to create those study notes, but also make sure that you have an adequate amount of basic knowledge of these 8 religions. So I took this, or I screen grabbed this from the 2021 November paper, paper, and this is question 1.2. So I want to show you how do we look at question papers, work through question papers, and then create those study notes, right? So if you look at 1.2, it is filling in the missing word, right? So filling in the missing word from the statement. And let's look at 1.2.1. Okay. So 1.2.1 says the mystical dimension of Islam that emphasizes certain unique rituals for guiding spiritual seekers into a direct encounter with God is. So here you have to give, obviously, it's going to be Sufism, and you need to know that one of the branches of Islam is Sufism. So when you're creating your Islam mind map or study note, and you are focusing on Islam, then you have to extract this information, because now you need to know that there is a mystical dimension of Islam that is called Sufism, right? And then if you look at 1.2.5, right, I'm not going to go through everything because yeah, the question papers are obviously available. But if we look at 1.2.5, right? So the belief in many gods is known as. Now, this doesn't relate to a particular religion, but this is basic known concepts that we have to know while we're preparing and as we're preparing for our religion studies question paper. Okay, so we all should know this. The belief in many gods is not monotheism. I have a blank now, actually. What is it? Polytheism, right? So it's polytheism, definitely. So again, you need to know what monotheism, what is monotheism and what is polytheism. And as we know, monotheism, it's the three Abrahamic religions, which believes that there is one God. Okay, so the belief in one God, whereas the opposite being polytheism. Okay, so we're going to go to a question in section A, which is 1.3. Right, so here we see that it's a bit different to other subjects and how they ask it. So in this question, we now have to choose the one that does not fit, right? So the one that does not fit with regards to 1.3, right? So we look at Charles Darwin, Shoghi Effendi, Copernicus, and Kepler. So very importantly here, they want you to give the one that does not fit, but also give a reason for it, and that's where you get your 2 marks as well. And what we find when we are marking the papers, right, because I am a marker for the WCED, when we are marking, learners lose the marks here because they don't give the reason of why it doesn't fit. Okay, so you should know there that Shoghi Effendi is not, definitely not the one that is fitting. And as we know, the rest, all the others, were scientists that what's the word, that helped in the progression of the theory of evolution. Okay, and then we look at let's go to number 1.3.5, right? The yin, the Tao Te Ching, the Dhammapada, and then the Yang. Now, in this one, again, we have to extract the one that doesn't fit. So we have to look for the similarities here. The Yin and the Yang, Tao Te Ching. Now, we know that the Yin and the Yang comes from Taoism or Taoism, as my learners correct me, right? It comes from Taoism. So obviously the Dhammapada does not fit there. And your reason why, or that you're going to stipulate, is that it does not fit or doesn't belong to the Taoism religion. And then when you look at matching the columns, right? Again, you can get a lot of information here from matching the column, because the description is right there, and therefore you can add it to your study notes, right? So traditional Hinduism, we will link it to which one is it? Yes, so it needs to be E, I think. I think it's E, definitely, right? So two religious groups parted ways because of political differences, right? So we know that Hinduism, there is a variety of sects within Hinduism as well, right? Then we have Christianity, and that goes with letter A. And Christianity, right? Because you're going to have a study mind map on Christianity as well, and you have to put in there the Holy Trinity, right? And the concept of the Holy Trinity you need to know, as because it's a basic, it is basic knowledge on Christianity, right? And then humanity should have a relationship of mutual respect and love. That also is one of the concepts that flows within Christianity. Okay. And then we look at the 2 final questions, and I want to focus on these 2 questions because, as you can see, lots of marks here, and it is important to note, right, that when we look at section A, right, there will be a certain amount of conceptual distinctions and definitions that we need to know. And as you can see here in 1.6, right, they ask you for they ask you in the context of religion to write 2 facts on each of the following terms. So when we look at section B now and how to prepare for section B, you're going to see that I'm going to cover a topic which relates, or which speaks about conceptual distinctions. So conceptual distinctions are basically all of these concepts within religion studies that could possibly come into your paper. But with conceptual distinctions, it can come in section A and it can come in section B. So what I have told my own learners is that you need to have a separate study booklet note where you have all of these conceptual distinctions in it so that you're able to revise it, recall it, and memorize it, right? Because there are going to be definitions that you're going to have to write about in the context of religion. So, what does it mean when we speak about in the context of religion, right? So, if you just look at pluralism over here, right? Pluralism can be explained outside the context of religion, but within the context of religion, we know that when we speak about pluralism, we speak about looking at a particular religion, right, and taking from many others, right? So you have to relate it always in the context of religion, right? So let's go to 1.5. So 1.5 is true and false questions, and here learners do quite well, and again lose marks because when it is a false, or when you answer false, you need to give a reason for why you said false as well, right? So we're going to look at 1.5.3, and as you can see with 1.5.3, Jesus Christ was reincarnated after he died. That isn't true. So you're going to write false there, right? Because Jesus Christ was not reincarnated after he had died, right? He was resurrected, right? And then you're going to have to say that. You're going to say that he was resurrected and taken up to the heavens. Okay. So I think that is it for section A. Oh, I created this mind map just to show you what or how you're going to create this study notes through the question papers. So section A is taking the past 5 years papers, going through section A's, making your study notes based on that, but also in conjunction with your textbooks and other resources that I'm going to share with you today, so that it is not as daunting to open that textbook, right? So with Christianity over here, just based on the previous questions, which came from the November 2021 question paper, we should have extracted that Christianity is a monotheistic religion. It's also an Abrahamic religion. And then this concept of the Holy Trinity. You need to know that the Holy Trinity symbolizes God the Father, the creator of the universe. And God the Father had sent God the Son, right? Nabi Isa alayhi salam, right? God the Son to as a manifestation of himself as the liberator of humanity. And then similarly, when what the Christians believe is that when Nabi Isa had ascended, he now had sent the Holy Spirit, which is the comfort of the Christians, right? And the Holy Spirit being the God's word, right? And found in the church as well, right? And then Christianity, three main sects within Christianity. We're looking at Catholics, the Protestants, and the Orthodox Christians. And very important to know those three, even for paper two. Okay. And then baptism is also a ritual within Christianity that speaks of using water as a sign of purification, and also it is a sign of that person accepting the church and also Christianity in their lives. Okay, so this is what you're going to do. You're going to create your study notes, and you're going to supplement it with your textbook and the resources that I'm going to share with you today. Okay, so we're going to go to section B now. Now, with paper one, section B, you have an option of two questions, right? So you have an option of two questions. Again, you're choosing the question that you have prepared for. And today I'm going to share some tips with regards to how to choose the question that you are comfortable with. Let's say you haven't had a teacher like some of our learners, right? And you want to pass, but you don't know which questions to ask, etc. This is what I'm going to delve into. Okay. So section B, usually there is 4 questions, but it can be 3. We've seen in some years that they've only included 3, but 2021 was a four question paper. So these questions now are going to have a range of sources, some text, even some graphs, might have, an article, etc. And your responses here are going to be short responses, but it can also be paragraphs. So your two questions that you're going to choose out of the exam guidelines over here, right? So, what I've told my learners is that when we look at the topics that will present itself in section B, we need to look at what type of learner you are, first of all. Okay, so what can you expect in section B in paper one, right? So what can you expect? So the following the following three topics are going to be assessed, right? It will be assessed, and it can range from topics that will be merged into one question. For example, the paper that I'm going to show you now, you will see that conceptual distinctions, which is the first point, appreciation of the uniqueness of various religions, which is the second point, and religious teachings come into one question. So it is not always where one topic is in one question, right? So you might have a combination of two or more topics in a question. So the first topic we're going to look at is conceptual distinctions, uniqueness, and religious teaching. So these are the first three topics. So I say to my learners, usually this is question one, right? So when you use those five question papers that you've used for section A, you're going to keep it for section B, because now you're going to look at question two. Sorry, it's actually supposed to be question two there, because section B starts off with question two. Um, Usually, question two is the question where you will have your conceptual distinctions in it, the uniqueness of various religions, and also some of your religious teachings. So, I say to learners that if you know you're able to memorize and recall meanings of concepts quite easily, and usually these are learners that are, your high school learners doing religion studies. They are able to just swat it and get it into their brains, right? But overall, I would highly advise that this question is done, right? And also, the reason why I advise it is because not only does conceptual distinctions come in section A, but in section B now in this question, but it also comes in section A. So it's important for you to actually do this topic, especially the conceptual distinctions one, because it can possibly come in section A, and you're able to now recall and write down the meanings of certain concepts. Okay, so, and like I said before, the third point over here, conceptual distinctions in the context of religion is important to note. Again, you have to relate it to religion studies. You can't tell me what a myth is, a myth or a parable is, without relating it and without giving me an example to the context of religion. Okay, and then we look at the second point on our exam guidelines. I'm just going to go back so you can see it, right? The second point, which is appreciation of the uniqueness of various religions. On this topic, again, I would highly recommend you to go through this topic in your textbook and also in the resources that I'll be sending you, so that you're able to also know basic knowledge on those eight religions that we need to study for religion studies. And as you can see here, it's going to add knowledge to your memory bank, to your religion education background, right? So you have to be able to become confident and also become, you know, um, what's the word? Become able able within these eight religions to know the basic facts. So I like to advise that uniqueness of various religions is chosen, because not only does it come in section A and it strengthens your knowledge in section A, but it can also help with paper two later on the 14th of November. Okay. And then religious teachings. So learners, if you look at the third point on the exam guidelines, it speaks about religious teachings, and these are basic teachings, right, of various religions. So let's just go back with regards to those mind maps that we're making, those study notes. So religious teachings, the uniqueness of Christianity, all of that will now be placed, or you will filter that information and that knowledge on Christianity through working through these questions, so that you're able to add on to your study notes. Okay, and then the last point that I say here is that usually these three topics are merged into one, right? And you will see it now in this paper, as you can see in section B, question 2, 50 marks obviously. And here we this is a good example of all three for all the three topics coming in to one, right? Or here in two topics. Okay, so question 2.1, explain the concept of uniqueness in the context of religion. So we are preparing for this topic, and therefore we need to know what uniqueness means in the context of religion. Okay, then discuss the importance of the uniqueness of a religion. Why is it so important for a religion to be unique, right? So what I encourage learners to do is, when you're printing these 5 question papers that you're going to be working through to prepare yourself adequately, print the marking guidelines as well, so that you're able to take. So now you know what the importance is, because the marking guidelines is going to give you 3, 4, even more points that you can take from there, memorize, put it into your own words if you're that kind of learner. Okay, so, and then 2.4. 2.4, explain 3 common features of each of the following. So here, they're not only testing your knowledge on a particular religion, but they need you to know what an Eastern religion is, right? So again, how do we extract the information from this question paper, so that we are able to prepare ourselves adequately for whatever might come in the end of year paper? So you need to know what Eastern religions are, right? And a good distinction here is Middle Eastern and Eastern religions. Learners get this confused. So Middle Eastern, some learners say it is Hinduism, Buddhism, etc. Whereas Eastern religions, we speak about Theism, the Baha'i faith, etc. Okay, and then African religions, any commonalities between that. Okay, and then 2.5 is of highly important. Highly important, right? So you get to name 4 similarities that exist within the Abrahamic religions. So again, your Abrahamic religions, and if we look at this paper, you need to know what Eastern religions are, you need to know what African religions are, and also you need to know the 3 Abrahamic religions. Okay, so Christianity, Judaism first, Judaism, Christianity, and then Islam. Okay, and then 2.6 speaks about 3 facts. And again, you will always see that the question paper will relate it to the context of religion, right? Writing 3 facts about each of the following, right? Hinduism's view on karma, the Inyanga in African traditional religion. So you need to know what karma is, because it is a basic principle within Hinduism, and Hinduism is one of the religions that we focus on in religion studies. And then in Inyanga, you need to know that it is an African traditional healer, right? In ATR. And then baptism in the Christian religion, and as you know, water purification, and it's a symbolism, or a sign that you have accepted the Christian faith. Okay. So we're going to go to the exam guidelines. This is the 4th point now, which is religious freedom, human rights, and responsibilities. This question is a nice question to do. It is a nice question to do. I don't encourage it to my learners. I've asked them to study conceptual distinctions, religious teachings, and also what's the other one now? The other one is uniqueness. The only reason why is because um, this question, right? This question is a bit of both. It's a bit of learners who can recall and memorize, but it's also application of knowledge. So I would encourage ABET learners, older learners who are doing religion studies to get their matric or to, get a bachelor's pass to do these questions, because you need to have um, background knowledge and experience when you're dealing with this kind of question. So it looks at religious freedoms, human rights, and responsibilities. So the main points that we cover in this topic is what sources are available to promote religious freedom in South Africa, right? So your Universal Declaration of Rights, and when you go to your question papers, and these questions in particular, you will find that there is an emphasis on knowing your constitution, your Bill of Rights, the Universal Declaration of Rights as well. Okay, so knowing the basic overview of it. Okay, and then the second point that we cover in this topic is what is the relationship between human rights and religious teachings. So here we speak about what teachings does particular religions what teachings enforces or what teachings motivates human rights and the implementation of human rights. So we speak about in Islam the ahadith that there is no compulsion in religion, right? So you can bring that in, know at least one what we call it the golden rule. Know one golden rule that you can apply when they do ask you whether what religious teachings can promote the human rights, right? So an example is the one of Islam, where the Prophet ﷺ says that there is no compulsion in religion, right? So we cannot overstep the boundaries of other people because we want to convert them to our religion. Okay, and then the third main point underneath religious freedom, human rights, and responsibilities is what is the relationship between religious freedom and tolerance, right? So you need to know what tolerance is: the ability to accept other religions and respect them, right? So what is the relationship between that and religious freedom? So we need to be able to tolerate other religions in order for us to practice religious freedom. And then, how does religions support religious tolerance? And here again, you're going to bring in your golden rules. So within Christianity, you can speak about certain concepts of being able to or some certain concepts that emphasizes religious tolerance. Okay, and then the final point underneath this topic is looking at how does South Africa demonstrate religious freedom. So I'm going to just go to the question 3. So this is question 3, and as you can see with this topic, it comes as a full question, completely full question, right? So nice to do, because now you can only cover this topic, right? And therefore prepare adequately for it, right? So if you are a learner that is able to apply your knowledge, let's say they give you an extract, etc., and you're able to memorize a little bit but also apply, then this is the question for you. Okay, so it gives you a little article, and it speaks about the first one, right? 3.1. What measures have the South African government put in place to uphold the above declaration, which is Universal Declaration of Human Rights? And then explain the different ways in which this declaration is applied in Western and Eastern cultures. So let's say you want to do this question, right? And you have 5 papers that you have printed out and the marking guidelines, and you're going to focus on the question 3s, because usually the religious freedom question comes after the conceptual distinction one, right? So let's say you see a trend. Okay, they're always going to ask, what is South African government, what measures does the South African government have in place to promote religious freedom? You need to know that. This is important. It's in the exam guidelines, right? And then 3.4, very important, with reference to any one religion, discuss its teachings that promote human rights. So again, here we look at the teachings in one religion. And here I like to say to my learners, go to your own religion, right? It's easier for you to remember, right? So if you are Muslim, go to Islam. What does Islam teach about promoting human rights? Okay. And if I just look at the memo, this is 3.4. If I just look at the memo, right, the memo actually speaks about Christianity. So it speaks about one of the commandments. It says jy mag nie doodmaak nie. So it means you may not kill, you may not kill another human being. Again, it's a teaching that promotes human rights. You cannot take the life of another human being. So even if you just remember that and you elaborate on it, you'll get the 10 marks. Oh, yes, this is what I needed to mention as well. So let's say 3.4 is 10 marks, right? So it's 10 marks. You need to at least provide 5 points in order to get the full 10 marks, right? So look at your mark allocation as well. For 3.1, there is 12 marks. So obviously it's going to be 6 marks because for each fact that you write, it is double marks, okay? Then the second last topic, I think. Yeah, this is the second last topic that will come in a particular question in section B in paper 1. And again, we're looking at media coverage on public issues that has religious implications. So how does the media report on certain religious issues, right? What are some of the factors that influence the media? And then also, how can the media neutralize stereotyping of religions? And as we know, we've seen, and like I've told my learners, we've seen certain articles that promote a certain idea or pushing a certain narrative. Looking at particular text is what this question is actually about, right? So they will give you an article and look at how to apply the knowledge that you've learned in this particular topic to the question. So in the November paper, we had this article over here, which speaks about the Christian response needed against threats to remove Christmas and Good Friday holidays. This question are for your learners that are able to read and also add on add on to the knowledge that they already have. So your ABET learners, your adult learners, very good question for you guys to attempt to do, so that you're able to afford or get the highest marks possible for this paper. Okay, so as you can see, all the way from 4.1 to 4.2, they will ask you questions on the particular article. A nice question to do if you are the lazy types, right? But again, this question will have a longer article compared to the other two that I've done before, and it's going to ask you questions on the particular topic and the article. Okay, so if you look at 4.3 now, 4.3.
Apologies to interrupt you.
No.
um, I need to interrupt you as we have reached the end of our session for this afternoon, and I know that you wanted to continue with the lesson,
I
but
was
that we
almost
need to wait for our next
done.
session, inshallah, as our news reporter standing by for a live reading on air, inshallah.
Okay,
Really,
right.
I could see
Okay.
you were getting into the lesson, but yeah, time
Yes,
is up,
exactly.
unfortunately. So
No,
we
no,
need to
no
add that
problem, no
maybe
problem.
to the next session, inshallah.
Yes,
Shukran
yes,
so
I
much,
will. No
Fatima.
problem, no problem. Shukran so much. So next week Friday, same time, right? So I will just
Same
continue
time.
from here.
Yes, inshallah.
Okay,
Shukran to
okay.
you, the
Shukran.
viewer. Also, shukran.
Afwan, Afwan.
Fun. And shukran to our viewers for tuning in. It is a recorded session. You can listen back, inshallah. From myself and my guest this afternoon, Fatima Adamson, we bid you farewell. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.